You know, sometimes the biggest lessons come from the smallest stories. So, what can a fable about a country of mice teach us about something as huge as democracy and trust? Well, you'd be surprised. Let's dive into this story because it unpacks a problem that feels, well, incredibly real right now.
All right, so picture this. We're in a place called洞沙國. It's a country populated entirely by mice. And just like any other nation, it's got its own drama, right? Its own politics, its own fights, and its own big problems.
Now, for the longest time, things in洞沙國were pretty predictable, stable. But then, an election happened. And this one election completely shook things up, kicking off a conflict that was going to test the very soul of their little nation. So, here are our two main players. First, you've got the Guava Party. Think of them as the old guard. They'd been running the show for ages, and they were, let's just say, not happy about losing. And on the other side, the Blueberry Party. They're the newcomers, fresh off this huge win that just handed them control of Parliament. You can just feel the tension, right? It was there from day one.
So what's a party to do when they lose? Well, the Guava Party didn't just sit back and plan for the next election. Nope. They decided to take a tool that was meant to be a safeguard for democracy, the recall, and turn it into a political weapon.
And look, we're not talking about 1 or 2 recalls here. This was an all-out war. The Guava Party launched this massive campaign to try and kick out every single Blueberry member. Of course, the Blueberries fought back with their own counter-recalls. Suddenly, the whole country is just thrown into this political brawl, and a tool meant for accountability is being used for pure political payback. But while all this political fighting was going on, something much more disturbing started to bubble to the surface. This wasn't just about politics anymore. Something was going wrong with the justice system itself. And the everyday mice of洞沙國, they started to notice. They began asking some really tough questions. As they're watching all this play out, they had to wonder, wait a minute, is the system actually playing fair? Or is somebody putting their thumb on the scales of justice?
And when you looked at the evidence, the difference was, well, it was night and day. If you were with the Blueberry Party, your volunteers were constantly getting hauled in for questioning by prosecutors. They were facing investigations, indictments. Some even got detained, which just stopped their recall efforts cold. But the Guava Party campaigners, it was like they were invisible, business as usual. The asymmetry was just glaring and deeply alarming.
I mean, just look at this chart. It lays it all out in black and white. The number of legal actions against the Blueberry Party, through the roof. And the Guava Party, practically zero. The data itself screamed that something was seriously off balance. And this is the real gut punch of the story. It stopped being about which party you liked more. The mice of洞沙國started to suspect that a core pillar of their society, the justice system, wasn't there to protect them anymore. They began to believe it was just another political tool.
So you might be asking, well, if things were so bad, why didn't more mice speak up? And the answer is simple, and it's chilling. Fear. So many mice saw what was happening, but they stayed quiet. They were terrified of being attacked online by the really hardcore Guava Party supporters. And so you had this huge silent majority just watching and worrying.
Then, the day of the recall vote finally came. And this was the moment. This is when that silent majority decided, okay, enough is enough. They found their voice, not by shouting, but in the privacy of the voting booth. They were about to deliver their verdict. And the result? It was absolutely stunning. After all that effort, all that money, all that one-sided legal pressure from the Guava Party, how many Blueberry members were recalled? The answer is 0. A big, fat 0. Not a single one. See, by showing up and voting disagree on every single recall, those silent mice sent a message that was loud and clear. It wasn't really a vote for the Blueberry Party. It was a vote against the whole dirty process. It was a nationwide rejection of using the justice system as a weapon. But here's the tragic part of the story. You'd think this would be a happy ending, right? A victory for fairness? But it wasn't. It didn't fix洞沙國. Actually, things got worse. The division just got deeper. The distrust spread everywhere. Suddenly, fake news was common. Crazy conspiracy theories started flying around. They stopped the recalls, yes, but in the process, their country became more fractured than ever. Okay, so if just winning a vote doesn't fix the underlying problem of trust, then what does? This is where the fable of洞沙國gets really useful. It doesn't just show us the disaster, it actually gives us a roadmap for how you can start to rebuild that trust once it's been shattered. And that roadmap is built on 4 key pillars.
And we're not talking about fuzzy, feel-good ideas here. These are solid, practical steps you can take to make the system itself trustworthy again. So let's walk through them one by one.
Pillar number 1, radical transparency. Basically, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Imagine public websites, dashboards, where any citizen can see the real data. What types of cases are being prosecuted? Who's getting indicted? Why are some cases getting thrown out? The whole point is to stop the rumors and suspicions by just putting the facts out there for everyone. You can't argue with objective data. Second up, independent oversight. Look, you can't just expect a system to police itself, especially when trust is broken. This means you bring in outsiders. Think respected judges, academics, lawyers, to act as a check and balance. And you also do simple things, like assigning cases randomly, or even moving highly political cases to a different city. The idea is to build firewalls to stop political pressure from influencing legal decisions.
Pillar 3 is all about smarter legal reform. Here's the thing, you want good people to be involved in democracy, right? But nobody's going to volunteer to collect signatures if they're scared that one tiny accidental paperwork mistake could land them in court. So, you create a safe harbor for honest mistakes. You draw a clear line between a simple slip-up and actual deliberate fraud. This isn't about being soft on crime. It's about being smart, so you don't scare away the very citizens your democracy depends on.
And the fourth and final pillar, putting some rules in place for sensitive periods, like right before an election. We all know that timing is everything. A surprise indictment right before a vote can feel, well, political. So you create clear rules. Maybe major legal actions need approval from a higher non-political authority, or maybe you limit big public announcements that could sway voters. It's all about making sure the justice system doesn't just act fair, but that it's also perceived as fair, especially when the stakes are highest.
So the tale of洞沙國really leaves us with one big question to chew on. Is trust in our systems something we can just take for granted? Or is it something that has to be earned over and over every single day? The story of the mice seems to suggest it's more like a garden than a statue. It needs constant work, transparency, fairness, and a real commitment to justice, or it will wither away.